Hello and welcome to Mentor Speak, a new year and a new episode. Now, this is especially meant for all those law students who are wondering, should I be a law firm lawyer? Should I be an in-house counsel? Believe me, there are far more options than those two. Our guest today is Shailja Singh. She is an international trades lawyer and she regularly represents the government in various WTO disputes and agreement negotiations on behalf of the country. She works as a legal consultant with the Center for WTO Studies at the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, New Delhi. She has also worked in Advisory Center for WTO in Geneva, AZP Partners Mumbai, and ICICI Bank. She has law degrees from the University of Cambridge and NUJS. Full disclosure, she is from my batch and a very, very close friend. Welcome, Shailja. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this with me in this format.
Thank you so much, Deboshmita. It's an absolute pleasure to be here today. And this is a fantastic concept, and I hope I can provide some useful insights.
Absolutely. I'm pretty sure you will do. So I will start with a question which I usually ask all my guests, because a question which is foremost in everybody's mind is, how do I choose what I want to be? Do I have to get it right at the beginning, or can I take some false steps here and there and then figure out? So, how did you figure out what happened? You have an in-house experience. You have also worked in a top-tier law firm, and then you went for your master's. And now you're doing something completely different. So just tell us a bit about how you decided, what went through your mind, and I'm sure we all get to learn something.
Yeah, thank you so much, Deboshmita. That's a great question and a very, very tricky one indeed, because there is, no one size fit all solution or no sort of standard template, the perfect template that is out there that can be followed when it comes to such career deciding, choices or life defining moments. So my personal advice always is that be open to all opportunities that come your way. Grab whatever opportunity you can. And it's okay if your first job is not your dream job. The idea should really be to make your mark wherever you are. Give your 100%, give your best, and constantly also look for other opportunities if you so feel that your first choice is not panning out the way you want to. But that is the sort of takeaway that I have learned from my own experience, because if you recall, when we graduated way back in 2009, the economic scenario was such, because of the after effects of the financial crisis, that hiring in the legal sector was highly, highly restricted.
Yeah.
In fact, our batch mates, several of them couldn't find campus, jobs. There were placements that year were dismal. So in those circumstances, I think what we did back then was to sort of be open to opportunities that we could find. And I was very fortunate to have actually landed a job during campus recruitment, which was with ICICI Bank. And that's how I ended up working there in Mumbai. And it was a great experience, to be very honest. I thoroughly enjoyed my time at ICICI. I had a wonderful set of colleagues, who are sort of lifelong friends now and great mentors. So it was a time very, very well spent, a good learning time. And it was a difficult decision for me because I changed jobs fairly quickly in my first year itself. And the common advice that one always receives it is that you should not be very fickle, while you're just starting out. Try to stay at one place for a long time and only then move. But at that point in time, I wasn't really looking at banking law as a career choice or career option. And despite the absolutely fantastic work environment that was there at ICICI, I did decide to move at AZB, and I was there again for a few months. But all this was a sort of, trying out. As I said, you have to find what is the right fit for you.
True.
And I remember, way back when we were in college, I always used to wonder, oh, I wish I could make a career in international trade law. I
Right.
wish there were options out there.
Mm.
And at that point, I really didn't have, the courage or the conviction to pursue that. So the plan was always sort of, we'll work for a couple of years in a law firm and then, figure out what we want to do next.
Mm.
But the initial phase was sort of decided in our minds that this is what it's going to be. And it was not very different for me. But the whole churn that we went through because of the recruitment and, sort of our plans going disarray,
Right.
it made me, rethink, and it made me sort of readjust and realign, reset my career path. And that's when I decided that, okay, maybe, once you have gone through all this, trial by fire kind of circumstance that we experienced way back then, I thought, okay, maybe let's not push my LLM plans further, and let me actually make an active effort in trying to see if I can make a career in international trade law. And if that doesn't work out, then perhaps I will come back to, the field of law firms and corporate houses, whatever the case may be. So this was my sort of individual journey. And the economic crisis and the circumstances then actually sort of accelerated my growth on my trajectory towards a career in international trade law. I still feel eventually I would have gotten there had it not been, this kind of trial that we went through then. Exactly. But, the takeaway from all of this, I think, for the viewer should be that this is my personal journey, and these are choices I made given the circumstances I was in and, my own gut feeling and instincts. These may not be the sort of choices that everybody needs to follow.
Right.
In fact, if I, reflect upon my colleagues and where they are, who were at ICICI Bank and, who joined with me, there are some of them who are still at ICICI Bank and doing fantastic there. So that's what they really, thought was their calling, and they are doing very well. I have batchmates who actually left ICICI and now are sort of moved into law firm, practicing banking law. So there are so many of these, career options that come up once you are, there working. And exactly. So therefore, while with the benefit of hindsight, I can pontificate that, guys, this is how it should be. I think the takeaway is that whatever opportunity comes your way, and I think it's important to be alert to that possibility, especially now, because we can draw some parallels to 2009 and 2020, 2021. It is important that, you keep a lookout for opportunities, grab whatever you can, and give it your best shot.
True.
If you are not satisfied, then look for other opportunities. But, that's the approach it should be, that approach things with an open mind.
True.
So
true,
that's,
true.
yeah.
Absolutely.
That's my 2 cents.
2 cents, and I totally agree with your 2 cents, and add my 2 cents and make it 4 cents, is that it's okay if you are not certain as to what you want to do. I think that's where everybody gets this jittery feeling. I still don't know what I want to do when they're approaching 5th year. I think neither of us did. You, I think, were very clear, and you had this dream and you had this aspiration. I don't think I had, honestly. And it's just, we made a meandering journey towards our career, and it's fine. It's totally fine to try out everything and see what you like, because what you study in college is so different from what you experience in workplace, that one needs to experience and goes through that to finally be able to decide. Great. I'm totally with you on this. We were talking about LLM, so let me just quickly, ask you this question, because I have no idea about this. Everybody has this concept or notion that masters is mainly for an academic career. But you are not in an academic career. So what do you think of it? And if, at all one should do, when's the ideal time to do, whether it's right out of college or with some work experience, with a lot of work experience? Just want to know your thoughts on this.
Right, right. That's a good question as well. So when it comes to LLM, I think there are several factors that go into that decision. A is, of course, what value addition it will do to you, to your career. And second is, of course, the very important aspect, which is the funding and the economic aspect, especially if you are looking to do your LLM from outside India. So for me personally, the decision was a tough one because of the second factor, which is, how do I go about funding it, and, what are the opportunities after the LLM? So there was a big if sort of there when I was planning to pursue my LLM. But in the area in which I am working currently now, which is international trade law, and in fact, that's probably true for most, areas of international law, you will get more opportunities once you have a master's in that discipline.
Okay.
So this is the unique nature of international law practice that exists, especially if you want to work with international organizations that, implement or, formulate rules on different aspects of international law, or if you want to work with foreign governments, or if you want to work with think tanks. So LLM is sort of a very, very important qualification or eligibility requirement that you will come across. That's not to say that there aren't opportunities there in international trade practice without a master's. Of course, there are. In fact, if you're working in a law firm in India, which does, a certain type of international trade related work, you don't really necessarily, need an LLM. So that is one option that's there. The other thing is a lot of people want to work with think tanks, gain the kind of experience in the area in which they want to do LLM, and then apply for the degree. So that's also an option there. So you can actually work without an LLM, in think tanks like mine, the Center for WTO Studies, gain some experience, and then move on to do your master's. But eventually, in a think tank policy world, or if you want to, just open your options up when it comes to international trade related jobs, you will actually at some point need to do an LLM because you will hit the wall at some stage. So that is something to be kept in mind. And this is an insight I can share from my experience in international trade. But of course, this doesn't apply to other areas.
Of course.
And yeah.
Good. So now that we're talking about, career as an international trade lawyer, I just want to ask you, will you share as to what are the various profiles or various types of jobs or various kinds of works that, a lawyer does in this field? And are there international opportunities for Indian students with an LLM, if there is?
Yeah, sure. So to begin with, let me put it out right at the start that international trade law is a very, very specialized and niche area of practice. And not all law firms have trade practice teams. So opportunities, therefore, are also, limited to a certain extent. And that's a reality that you have to keep in mind whenever you decide to embark on a career in this field. Having said that, yes, there are, I would say, 4 or 5 different kind of career options that you can, explore if you are interested in this area. The starting option could be law firms, which is, of course, not very different to the other, areas of practice that's there. There are law firms that specialize in international trade. And I think there's no harm in naming some of them for people who are not aware. So we have the economic law practices, which has a very vibrant trade practice team. We have Luthra and Co. I think it's now LLL Partners. Yeah. They have a very good team working on trade matters. There is Lakshmi Kumaran and Sridharan. There is Sarvada Legal. There is Claris Law Associates, one of the pioneers in trade policy work in India. We have APJ, SLG, we have TPM and solicitors. So these are different domestic law firms who are specializing in international trade practice. The thing to keep in mind is that the work that's done at the law firm may not be exactly the same that, for instance, is being done at a policy place like the center, which is me. So majority of the work that the law firms handle is from trade litigation practice, which is sort of trade remedies litigation rather, which is sort of the bread and butter of these law firms. And that's where, maximum billing happens. That's the money churner for the firms, which is basically a domestic application of international trade law. So what these firms do is they represent, domestic industry, exporters, importers, governments in investigations relating to anti-dumping, subsidies, safeguards that takes place at the domestic level. So this is the large chunk of work that the trade practice teams do. And what we also notice is that in several of these law firms, the trade practice is actually combined with one or two other practice areas. So we might have a firm where trade practice is done together with competition law practice, or trade is done together with customs practice, because there is a lot of complementarity, between the two areas. So, or it's done with indirect taxation practice. So there are these kinds of spheres in which the domestic law firms are generally operating, and these are options that can be explored if you are interested in. The second tier, where I shouldn't hierarchize actually, but the second kind of option that's available is looking for think tanks. And I think this is where the think tank where I work, which is the Center for WTO Studies, it's a part of Indian Institute of Foreign Trade. It's been established by Ministry of Commerce and Industry, India. So while we do independent research, we also get to work very closely with the government on trade policy matters, trade litigation, which is WTO disputes, and trade negotiations in the form of free trade agreements that India is negotiating currently or planning to negotiate. So this is the area of our work, and our work is actually purely application of international law. So we look at the WTO agreements, and then we see whether domestic policy making is complying with that, what changes are required in future policy making. And when we're talking about trade negotiations, then of course, it's not just the legal aspect, but also the greater, the larger policy prerogatives of the government that have to be taken into account. So this is the kind of work that the Center for WTO Studies does. And now we also have a sister center, which is Center for Trade and Investment Law, which is again part of IIFT, where the work is very similar and overlapping. So we are all part of sort of one super center for research in international trade. So this is an option for those of you who are actually interested in the international rules that are there, and their interpretation and their application in domestic scenario, and also participation in WTO disputes or negotiations or regular committee work. Right. There are other think tanks also, not backed by the government, but independent think tanks. For example, there is Brookings and Carnegie, the international big think tanks. There is CUTS International in Jaipur. So these are some firms which are also doing research, pure research in the area of international trade. There are consulting firms who have trade practice. For example, Ernst & Young has an excellent team that does a lot of trade-related work. So these would be your typical career options. Then, of course, there is the academia, if you want to get into teaching, because being a niche area, there is always dearth of, good quality faculty who are doing international trade law and, teaching it. So that's another option that's there at the national level. A short-term option that can also be looked into by those who are considering a career in this is there is this 1-year internship that Ministry of Commerce has for law graduates. And there you get placed with the Department of Commerce or Director General of Foreign Trade or the Director General of Trade Remedies. And that's sort of a good, gap year kind of experience, because sort of you can get 1 year of good experience and then move on to doing your master's or building up network while you are there, and then moving to law firms or other private players. So these are the options at the national level. At the international level, as I said earlier, a master's is a prerequisite. And there are a couple of notable exceptions, but I think it's fair to conclude that you would definitely need masters in 9 out of 10 opportunities that come your way. And for international trade, there is the WTO Secretariat. And in fact, Indian lawyers have done fantastically at the WTO Secretariat. We have perhaps 2-3 lawyers working currently, but at different points in time, we have had Indian lawyers working at the Secretariat, either as an intern or with a short-term contract, or with a longer sort of association with the Secretariat. So that's there. There is UNCTAD, which is again a UN agency that works on trade-related issues. And again, we have Indian lawyers working at UNCTAD, doing work on trade and even e-commerce, which are very, very closely related to each other. You have some foreign think tanks. There is one, for example, International Institute for Sustainable Development, IIST. So that's another opportunity that's out there, but you need to, work towards getting an offer from such a place. And there are, of course, foreign law firms, but it's perhaps a bit more difficult to break through into the law firm. It's not impossible. In fact, one of the NUJS alumnus is working in trade at a Geneva-based law firm. So it's not impossible. It's just a bit more difficult because there are more visa restrictions when it comes to hiring, when it EU or even in US or UK. So it's perhaps more convenient for employers, to hire somebody at an international organization where such visa rules don't apply. So these are some options that are there at the international level. And in fact, lawyers from India are working at all these different platforms, and they are doing incredibly well. So for anybody who is interested, I think you will find enough and more inspiration out there, both at the national as well as international level. And yeah, so just keep a lookout and, work towards it if this is what you want to do.
Oh, that's a fantastic insight. Even I came to know so many new things from this answer. Just taking a thread from your last sentence, work towards it if you're interested. I understand masters is, of course, one quite crucial thing one should aim at. But apart from that, while they are in the, LLB course, is there anything specific or any tips or any guidance that you can give if somebody is interested in this area?
Yeah, well, I think some of the tips that I can share are perhaps something that, is true for other areas also. So, if you are interested in international trade, then yes, first and foremost, if there is an optional being offered in your law school in that area, please take it. Because we meet a lot of students who have done a general course in public international law, and while that's very important and that lays a good foundation, international trade and WTO rules are very, very specific. Exactly. So it helps that you have a course, you've done an optional course in this area. This is also important because, there are law schools out there who actually provide you specialization or an honors in international trade at the undergraduate level itself. For example, NLU Jodhpur is one of them. So if you are competing with somebody who has a trade law honors, then I think you'll need to probably put that extra effort if you don't have a similar opportunity at your law school. And as I said, one way is that take up that optional course if there's no compulsory one on international trade. The other option, of course, is that look for internships. So, right from think tanks to law firms, these internship opportunities are present. There are internship opportunities present. So make use of them. Test the water, see if it's something to your liking and, whether you want to pursue it long term. Then, of course, if you can publish something while at law school, there is nothing like it. And it not just be, academic articles. Now you also have these websites which carry very, very interesting and informative blogs. So there are different ways of, getting noticed or just demonstrating to a potential employer that, yes, I am interested in this area and I have, taken these steps to enhance my knowledge and to gain more experience.
Right.
Then, of course, there is something that the center does, which is a 1-month summer school that we run, which is in collaboration with the World Trade Institute at the University of Bern. And we get the best of international trade law faculty and practitioners, as well as, drawing the best from India. So that is, I think, a good sort of experiment or experience. If you are not sure, but if you can spare that 4 weeks to come and do this course, I think that will clear a lot of questions in your mind whether this is for you, and you get an opportunity to interact with these national and international experts in this area. Lastly, I think if anybody is into mooting, then there are a couple of moots that are specifically dedicated to international trade issues. One is the GIMC, which is run by GNLU in Gujarat. So that's a good option, just to get the experience and enhance your knowledge, and just to demonstrate that you took that extra, you put that extra effort into a trade area. And the other is the international competition, which is the ELSA moot competition, which is also on WTO issues. So that is again something that you could look into. And we have had Indian teams doing, brilliantly in the past. In fact, they've even won it a couple of times, or perhaps 3 times till now. And you instantly get noticed in international trade circles if you do well in that mood, because the finals, take place at the WTO Secretariat, and you have all these trade law stalwarts there judging you. So that's another option or way forward if you are interested in this area.
Wow, that's amazing. It's a session of amazing insights. People, if you're interested in international trade law, and she's given out enough information, enough tips and guidance for you to follow through. Thank you, Shailja. Thank you so much for spending this time with us.
Thank you so much, Debashmita. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I hope students found it useful.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.